Before we begin this training, I would love to introduce our Executive Director, Jason Conley. Jason, if you could join me on the screen, please.
Thank you, Berkenda. And
You're
thank you.
welcome. Good afternoon, and I'm going to leave you with it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you all for taking the time to join us today for our webinar on how to make the most of your Plugfest, how to make it a success, whether you are participating as a test equipment provider, an engineering firm, a laboratory, or a device maker. We want to make sure that you get the most out of this event. And we have with me today Russell Barber from Keysight Technologies and one of our qualified test equipment providers, and also participating in just about every Plugfest that we've had since 2017. Before Russell comes on the screen, I wanted to share a little bit with you about OmniAir Plugfest, so bear with me. And I will pull up presentation. Okay, I hope everyone can see that just fine. So we have coming up in less than 2 weeks, our OmniAir San Diego Plugfest. This is either the 14th or 15th OmniAir Plugfest that we've hosted since 2017. It is an opportunity for device vendors to work in a collaborative and cooperative environment to help improve their V2X RSUs, OBUs, and modules, and to learn from the V2X testing experts from around the world. One second. There we go. So what happens at an OmniAir Plugfest? These are collaborative and cooperative testing events. We do these at different facilities, whether they are test laboratories. This is a few pictures from the event we had last year at Suntrax, beautiful facility in Florida. We brought together teams from university, teams from different test equipment providers, device manufacturers from the US DOT, Florida DOT, and others, all really to help learn and improve in a very safe space. And it's a lot of fun. This is from our Taipei Plugfest that we had just last fall. We do these around the world. We've had them in Europe. We've had them in Asia. We've done them in Canada and throughout the United States. This next one is in San Diego, but it goes to show that this is a global phenomenon. I think that's one of the most exciting things about Plugfest is that we're learning about this from people from around the world. We have teams from Israel and from Hungary and from Taiwan, from Korea, Japan, the UK, France, Germany, Canada, all over, all coming together to work on this one mission of ensuring that we have conformance and interoperability and trust in the connected vehicle devices. So what are the goals? The goals are different depending on how you're participating. So for device vendors, this is really to prepare for certification. So OmniAir offers independent third-party testing and certification. We do that in two areas, one for RFID tolling, but in this case, we do it for cellular vehicle to everything devices, or CV2X. This is an opportunity for vendors to see if their devices conform to industry standards and whether they're interoperable with each other. Do they meet certain performance and security requirements? It gives them a chance to work with some of the leading test laboratories from around the world, also with some of the key test equipment providers. From the test equipment providers, they have an opportunity to make sure that their test equipment is attuned to the different issues that may crop up in testing. We learn some adjustments that may need to be made for standards or to test cases. We also provide the test equipment providers an opportunity to work with some of the authorized labs that will be their customers. For the laboratories, they have an opportunity to work with future customers and to help improve the testing process and for their teams to gain the technical knowledge. And from OmniAir's perspective, it's really an opportunity to bring our members together to work in this collaborative fashion. It also helps us to validate test cases and to improve our performance and to train some of the new staff that come on with the different laboratories and test equipment providers. And this is really all part of what we call sort of the steps of readiness. It starts with taking industry-defined standards, and we work on certification for a stack of standards that include standards from IEEE, SAE, ITE, CTI, a number of different organizations. Our working groups provide a consensus view on how to interpret those standards, and this allows us to test for functionality and consistency. We use those same test cases that we're using to test devices to audit and qualify test equipment providers. So Keysight has been through several OmniAir audits, and that's why it's one of our trusted test equipment providers. And we also make sure that test laboratories are able to run through all of our test cases, and they're using qualified test systems. And finally, we validate the test cases, and then we put, once a device has gone through Plugfest and the vendor believes that they're ready, they apply for certification, and they go through bench testing and field testing through an independent accredited test laboratory. The test laboratory provides us with a test report, and at the end of that, if we agree, we issue certification. And certification is relied on by deployers around the world. So whether these are IOOs or OEMs, it helps to build trust in the devices, that they can trust the devices conform to industry standards, they're interoperable, and meet certain security requirements. So you can see on the screen here that we have a lot of different participants. These are what we call our test stations. So these include test laboratories, TÜV Rheinland, DEKRA, Saxton Labs, TTA from Korea, test equipment providers like Keysight, Rohde & Schwarz, Waites, and others, and then SCMS providers, those providing the PKI security certificates that are used in testing, ISS, SASOL-Tech, Microsec, AutoCrypt. All coming together. Devices will rotate through those different test stations and really learn about the readiness of the devices. I can't say enough how the perspective the vendors bring in about the readiness of their device for either deployment or certification is different from when they start to when they finish through. And they learn a lot, and they get results that are private to them. We only provide anonymized aggregated results, but those results are private to the vendors. Device teams, you see the full gamut here of the leading test equipment or the leading V2X equipment providers. So these are providers of OBUs, RSUs, and modules that many of them are looking to deploy immediately. They are bringing early stage as well as more market-ready devices to test. And you can see here Applied Information, Coda, Consignia, Keti, Harman, Capch, Danlaw, Unix, as well as Unix with a U, Iteris, Spoke, Safety, and Edifice, all coming together for this great event. And I would be remiss if I did not mention our partner in this, our host, Qualcomm. We're very appreciative of them sharing their beautiful San Diego campus for this. If you participate in testing, whether you're a test station or a device manufacturer, you will get a certificate of participation that demonstrates to some of your customers that you've actually participated actively in OmniAir certification testing or in OmniAir Plugfests. And this is a stepping stone, again, to true device certification, but you will get this certificate of participation for the first time we're offering it this year. Just a few logistics. If you are planning to ship either test equipment or devices, this information is also on our website and on our registration page, but you can see that to ship different options to Sean Michoud at Qualcomm. If this is coming in from overseas, I would strongly encourage you to begin that shipping process now. Sometimes there are customs clearance issues. This is information about our select hotels. There are a number of hotels very within walking distance of the Qualcomm campus. The OmniAir team is staying at the Hyatt House. That is the preferred location. There are also Courtyard by Marriott, and there are residents in, and there are Hilton properties as well. So the run of the week, we will have testing set up on Sunday that will be available. Qualcomm is being very generous and opening up their campus on Sunday for those that want to set up early. We'll again have set up on Monday morning. And then one thing Russell's going to talk about is device capability screening, be a snapshot of how the devices are doing at the beginning of the week, a sampling of tests from across our many different test stations. And that will sort of help us to slot you into the testing schedule. Throughout the week, we'll have a series of technical presentations intermixed with test sessions. So for example, on Monday, we'll have Justin Anderson from the U.S. Department of Transportation, ITS Joint Program Office. He'll be talking about some of the results of the Wyoming interoperability testing. We'll have the next day Brian Romansky and Sean Michoud talking about some of the security testing and SLSS. We'll have representatives from University of Virginia, SASOL-Tech, and others all throughout the week. On the Wednesday evening, we will have a reception on site, and it will be a fantastic reception. We've got a great outdoor venue for that, and I hope you have an opportunity to come and do some networking. On Thursday, we're doing a conference, a little bit more about that in a bit, but we're also doing some testing in parallel with that, so you have your options for that. We're doing a strategic planning meeting that evening, free pizza to bribe you to come, really looking at our OmniAir's 5-year roadmap. We want your input and advice as to what we should be developing testing and certification programs for over the next 2 to 5 years. And then we'll have some limited testing available again on Friday. And on that Thursday, on Halloween, we're actually doing a California state and local agency CV2X deployers conference that is more treats than tricks. It is going to be a fantastic event. We have a partnership with Qualcomm and ITS California on this. We do have some of the leading deployers in the state of California who will be speaking. We have the chair of ITS California. We'll have Jim Meisner from Qualcomm, Justin Anderson again from USDOT, David Mann, who leads the traffic operations division at Caltrans, as well as speakers from various cities and local government entities throughout California that are really making a difference in the deployment of CV2X, saving lives, whether in a public safety environment or to protect vulnerable road users or simply traffic signalization. So we'll have those presentations. We'll have some live demos outdoors, and you'll have an opportunity to view various CV2X applications in action. And then we'll have a separate IO stakeholder input session on a new OBU standard that's in development. So if you haven't registered yet, strongly encourage you to do so, because I think there is something for everybody at this event. My contact information is available here. You can visit our website. You can register on our website or on our Eventbrites. Strongly encourage you to do so. Testing registration closes the end of this week. But now I would like to invite Russell Barber to join us. He is our special guest today. And Russell I'm going to get this wrong, but you're the technical lead for for R&D for software-defined vehicles. That's a pretty exciting topic at Keysight Technologies. Keysight, as I mentioned, has been involved in just about every Plugfest. Russell has either been there in person or helping behind the scenes make those testing experiences a success. He's very active in all of our working groups, and I can't think of a better person to talk about what you need to do to prepare to make sure you get the most out of this Plugfest. Mr. Barber, I understand
Hey,
you're also
Jason.
in Scotland today.
I am, yes.
Oh, well,
I'm
welcome.
in
We're
Scotland.
so appreciative of you joining us. I'm going to turn
No
off
problem.
my camera and turn the floor over to you, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jason. Okay, everybody, thanks for to be here, and I hope this is going to be an interesting session. I'm Russell Barber, as Jason was saying, an R&D project manager in Keysight's software-defined vehicles team. We have responsibility, amongst other things, for CV2X solutions. Hence our great interest in OmniAir, and in particular helping out at the upcoming Plugfest that we have in just a week or so's time. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how to hopefully get the best out of your Plugfest attendance for everybody. So as Jason says, Keysight has been attending Plugfest since they started. Way back in 2017, Keysight has been involved in plug tests and participating, and we have seen great results from being a part of Plugfest. It's helped, I'm sure everybody would agree, as Jason was describing earlier, that by attending a Plugfest, it doesn't matter if you're a test lab, a device manufacturers, test equipment, or so, there's always something to learn by participating at Plugfest. We spend a lot of time at Plugfest testing. We spend a lot of time gathering results, but we also spend a lot of time encountering issues that hopefully we can think today about how to solve some of the issues or work around them to begin with, to make sure we optimize our time at Plugfest and make the whole event run pretty smoothly. So we have seen in the past that it does take quite a lot of time often to set up a test session, debug connectivity issues, and so on before you can even begin to do any testing. And during testing, there's often a mismatch in expectations. For one device has particular functionality and another one does not support that, which leads to confusion and delays and so on. And it's nice to avoid that if we possibly can. But of course, Plugfest it's not just about running tests and making them all pass. It's about learning. It's what interoperability is about. We're here at Plugfest to learn about our various devices, pieces of equipment, so that we can together move the state of the art forward in CV2X technology. So it's not quite normal to expect issues to arise. So that is not a problem that happens. We want to try and learn from that and find the best way of conducting our testing during the week of Plugfest to maximize the value that we get from being there. There's often not much point in testing some aspects of CV2X, perhaps. For example, if a technology or an area is well proven and has been understood for a long time, then we maybe not want to concentrate on that. We might want to concentrate more on the new features, the new areas that we're looking to develop within CV2X technology. And we'll maybe talk a little bit about that later on. But also, Jason was indicating earlier on about results and the results that we gather and how important it is to gather results from the testing, and that will take two forms, I suppose. At this Plugfest, there will be the initial testing on a Monday, where devices will run through a few early tests, very quick tests, we hope, to gauge the capabilities, and then later in the week during the main testing sessions that are scheduled, we'll gather much more detailed information that will allow us to gather that data to see exactly how devices and this equipment are performing, and that, as Jason indicated, will be reported directly back to device vendors. You will get results for your own devices or your test equipment and so on, but also aggregated and anonymized so that it can be provided to the industry bodies out with OmniAir, just to show where we are. Well, let's look a little bit at some specific topics about how to get around some of the quick issues that we might find. So it's encouraged that we use wired connectivity where possible. So for Ethernet for PC5, for GNSS, particularly for PC5 and GNSS, of course, because we don't want to interfere between devices communicating, and we don't want to have multiple GNSS emulations, for example, radiating in a room, because that causes no end of confusion for devices. So it's important that we try, where possible, to use wired connectivity. And part of that is knowing the diversity arrangement on your device, so that you can correctly connect up the input-output connectors and to test equipment or to other devices using couplers or any of these tools that you might need. We'd like to standardize, if possible, on SMA connectivity for RF. So if your device uses FACRA connectors, for example, or N-type connectors, they're fairly common too, but if your device uses FACRA in particular, please make sure that you have adapters and cables to suit, because if you don't bring that, somebody else may not have the right connector or the right adapter, and you've got to hunt around to see if somebody has something else that you can borrow, and it just takes time to do that, and we'll waste a little bit of time during the initial setup. So please make sure that you have the right connectors available to connect your devices to N or SMA. And we're particularly considering sessions with test equipment. TCI has been a requirement for quite a long time now, and it's necessary to help us do the upper layer testing. So ideally, every device should support TCI. I know that's sometimes not possible or not necessary for some of the lower layer testing like PHY or J3161. So if you don't have TCI and you are operating at that level, it's important to understand which chipset commands you would need to know to configure for the various tests in the physical and 3161 layers. So that's important that you can determine that ahead of time. Test equipment probably have an idea for how to do that, because speaking for Keysight at least, that our test equipment, we do have the ability to test PHY and J3161 tests without TCI, but if you have TCI, that is preferable. So specifically turning to GNSS now this information here, some of you may have seen these bullet points. It was sent from Sean Michoud just a few days ago. So just being aware that there will be no GNSS re-radiation inside the building. So there isn't a rooftop antenna with an amplifier and a feed that re-radiates within the building. So there is no way to get external GNSS at a test bench. However, not wirelessly. However, there will be feeds available, wired feeds available through a distribution amplifier, so from the roof of the building. So you will have a wired connection for GNSS if you want to use real sky operation. If your test equipment, then you may have GNSS emulation anyway, and therefore this is not really necessary for you. But please remember to think about DC. If your device has DC present on the GNSS connector, please bring a DC block, because you do not want to feed DC back to into the distribution amplifier or other devices or signal generators in the case of test equipment, perhaps. And if all else fails, there may be weak GNSS available if you have an antenna and you can place it next to a window. There is a large window, I understand, in the room, so that may well be possible that you can do that as a last resort. But please try to aim to use a wired GNSS connection for your GNSS capabilities. Okay, let's look at the Monday morning setup. Now, this is new at this Plugfest, the idea of doing an early capability check. So this has been the first time this has been done, I think, at a Plugfest. The aim is to be able to gauge how a device is operating, what its capabilities are, how close it is to being able to run a whole number of the tests. So what's been done is a small selection of test cases have been chosen, and I'll share those test cases in just a minute. A small selection of test cases has been chosen that will allow us to do a capability check at the start of the week. So on a Monday, every device will have a short session where a number of test cases are executed, either on test equipment or with other equipment. And the results of those tests will be gathered, and that will help to, first of all, understand the status of devices at the beginning of the week, but also to help with the scheduling. So the schedule will be developed during Monday and before the first session on Tuesday. So you will find maybe you don't know the sessions that you will be having later in the week when it is the start of the week, and that will be populated throughout the week as we understand which devices and which capabilities your devices have and which tests you're able to support. So Randy will be taking care of that. He will be managing that schedule as usual. The information we gather on Monday will help to prepare all of that information. Okay, so this is the test list that you can expect here. So you can see there are tests taken from the J3161 test specification, the security test specification, the wave spec, the BSM application spec, and the 609.2.1 test specification. So these will be the tests that every device will, where appropriate, will be expected to participate in. Of course, the WSA tests are not appropriate to OBUs, for example, and the BSM tests not appropriate to RSUs. But this is the total test list, and there'll be some other tests being executed with a sniffer to see how devices behave. So you'll notice from there that there's no PHY tests, as we alluded to earlier on. PHY is probably seen now as fairly stable, fairly mature, and there's probably no need to execute PHY tests during this capability check, because if you can run some of the 3161 tests, for example, then clearly your physical layer is good. So that those PHY tests have been excluded, not seen as essential for this purpose. But it's a broad spectrum of tests, as you can see, covering all the layers. Okay, so in preparation for Plugfest, as we say, it's important to understand device and test equipment capabilities. Mick Connolly has sent surveys out to all prospective participants. So if you have not yet completed your device or test equipment survey, please make sure you do that and get that back to Mick. It will help to understand how to schedule the early testing during the week and provide some more information for how to best support the testing during the latter part of the week. So with that information, we'll be able to tailor individual test sessions. That's quite an important thing to do, I think, because with every device may not support every feature. So we need to understand that before we start planning an individual test session. So for example, if you have a device and you come along to the Keysight bench, we'll ask you questions like, do you support SLSS? Can you turn security on and off? Will you support the new 3161/0 test cases? And so on. You can see the list of typical type questions here. Just want to comment on SLSS specifically here. So SLSS, we're looking for SLSS awareness at this Plugfest. It's similar to what we were aiming for at the previous one up in Ann Arbor. We're looking for SLSS awareness, which means that your device is able to handle the presence of SLSS subframes, which adjusts the subframe timing and numbering, but it's not required to use that SLSS as a timing reference instead of GNSS. Contrast that with perhaps full SLSS capability, which would be where your device actually uses the SLSS signals to control the physical layer timing or to populate the physical layer timing. 3161/0 also, there's some new test cases here that have been updated very recently in the 762 test specification. I forget, I think it's under ballot right now. I can't remember if it's under ballot or released, but it's close. So we'll be looking at 3161/0 tests and at this Plugfest. We're keen to see how devices behave with those new test cases as well. One thing just to point out, again, that's just the last part, is that some test cases use TCI to specify location and disable position and calendar time determination from GNSS. So in this case, you would still need to use GNSS for physical layer synchronization. You can't just disable entirely GNSS. So watch out for that. That's something we'd need to understand, because if your device does not retain GNSS use for physical air synchronization, then in that case, then it will mean that some tests cannot be executed. So just a couple more slides to go, really. We want to have confidence in device capabilities. Everybody's experience has probably been that sometimes the latest and untested builds can be a problem. I've said it before. It's never done that before. You know, it's a common phrase that you hear when you're testing things. So we would like to avoid that if possible. If particularly considering the early part of the week and Monday, if your device cannot execute some of the capability checks, then that's going to lead to issues in appropriate scheduling of later sessions during the week. So it's very important that your device is able to at least execute the capability checks on Monday. So please make sure that you're taking, if you're taking your latest build, make sure you've done some testing on it beforehand. Otherwise, we may end up with sessions that cannot go ahead. And reporting of results. So there will be Google Forms available. Mick Connolly will distribute these. They will be available, and there'll be one form for each test specification, each test layer. And at the end of every session, or at least every day, everybody that participates in a test session should complete this Google form to provide results indicating which tests were executed, which tests passed, which tests failed. If there was a failure, why did it fail? Was it a test equipment problem? Was it an OBU device issue? Where was that problem? And all this information will be gathered by Mick Connolly. Sorry, I've jumped to the wrong slide. This is a slide I should be talking about. Yes, the test reports. This provides valuable feedback to OBU and RSU vendors, test equipment vendors, on exactly how everybody's equipment is behaving and is performing. And we've talked earlier on, that data will be provided directly to vendors and to device vendors and test equipment vendors, but also aggregated and anonymized and be able to report externally to Keysight. So please complete your test reports at least daily, so that OmniAir can gather the information and keep track of progress throughout the week. I'm going to jump back a slide now, just talk about scheduling. So Monday morning capability checks, as we talked about, it's primarily to help us optimize the schedule, which Randy will communicate late Monday probably, or early on Tuesday before the sessions start. It's important to be on time for sessions. Otherwise, if you're late for a session, everybody's hanging about waiting or looking for where everybody else. So please try to be on time. But if that's not possible, communicate deviations, and that will allow everybody to replan and figure out the best way to change the schedule to accommodate that. So that is everything that I had. So thank you very much. And let's look forward to a great productive Plugfest in San Diego. And I'll close there.
Oh, apparently not. So just invite everyone, if you're attending, to put your questions in the Q&A box. If you have any questions for myself or Russell. Russell, let me just start out, just based on your experience, for the vendors what's the most common issue that leads to, maybe not the best experience at Plugfest? What's the issue that maybe might be the most common with vendors that they can easily remedy?
So basic connectivity, sometimes just making sure that why is my device not transmitting, for example, and that could be the GNSS isn't synchronized, or that's often an issue that we encounter, is there's a GNSS problem, but it doesn't really manifest itself other than the device isn't working. So making sure that we've got good GNSS capability. There's effective connectivity there. We know that the GNSS works on your device. One thing about GNSS that we sometimes find is that we have to be very careful in a simulated environment that we always move forward in time, because we don't. I don't know if this translates. We don't have a TARDIS. Don't know if you guys know what a TARDIS is. Doctor Who, time travel. So we don't
Oh, yeah,
time
okay,
travel,
okay,
right?
now I get it. Yeah.
We don't travel in time. Devices don't like traveling in time. If your device is emulated for now, and then we emulate for 6 months ago, it gets confused. So that often causes issues. So we must always try and move forward in time if anybody's emulating GNSS. That's the advantage of using Real Sky, of course, because
Of course,
it's
of course.
always
Well,
always
one
moving.
hopes that we're with Qualcomm hosting, we will have good connectivity. If any place
I'm
on
sure.
this earth should have good
I'm
connectivity,
sure.
it would be Qualcomm's campus. So, but I do think that's important, right? Because early setup, and pulling your devices out of the box and doing some initial testing on that, making sure that it turns on and everything's connected. That's one of the reasons why we have that early setup on Sunday, and we have
Mm.
that flows over to Monday morning, because it really does help everybody flow together. Now, what about the device testing teams that probably have the most success? I mean, what are some common characteristics of those teams that really are able to kind of take a full advantage of Plugfest and go through the testing? What have they done right?
I think they've prepared. They know their device capabilities. They don't have to. They right there and then they can perhaps make changes whilst we're running tests. We've seen that in the past, that people are encounter issues. Let's say the wrong table is loaded for the speed tests in 3161, for example. If the wrong table's loaded there, I understand that. I can make that change. We can test again straight away, or we can schedule a new session. Being adaptable in that way is great. If there's empty sessions, finding the ability to jump in and grab some extra time. So being available, that's a good thing. Being able to perhaps modify your code to try things out, that's also a good thing, which kind of contradicts a little bit about our plan of please don't take the latest stuff without testing it. But that's really for the start of the week. Throughout the week, if you want to make modifications and changes, that's a great way of right there at the time trying something out and then ticking the box to say we made that work.
So, what I see device vendors really improving over the course of the week. The team's gaining confidence as the week goes on. They're learning a lot. They have certain notions about the product that may not be true, and they're able to kind of fix things on the fly. So I see people sometimes, in the corners. We have to kick them out of the building late at night because they're working. We'll have overnight testing sessions this time. Can you talk a little bit about that? What the advantage of that is?
So overnight testing will give you ability to repeatedly run tests over and over again, which often, software is not perfect. You can run a piece of software once and it works, great, move on. But if you run it again and again and again and again, you might find the odd corner case where there's some variability in something, and you're just hitting one side or other of a corner case, and you might get lucky first time, but then the seventh time you may find, oh, there's a problem there. Let's go look at the logs. And you don't have time to do that on a normal 2-hour session. So taking advantage of some overnight testing, that's great for things like that. It's also good for the long tests. There are some tests that can take quite a long time to execute. So scheduling those to be on an overnight run, that's a great use of that time.
So normally without a Plugfest, if a device vendor goes to a laboratory, but they're not quite ready for certification, they're going to be spending a lot of money doing this much testing and getting this much feedback on their product
Yeah.
iteratively. So it's to their advantage to take advantage of Plugfest and all this learning.
And we take advantage too. With being test equipment, we're developing new test cases. We've got some brand new updates to these 3161.0 test cases that I talked about earlier on. We've got some updates to that. We will learn by executing our tests with devices, and together we'll be able to decide whether these test cases are to be promoted from informational to required.
I like that. I like that together, right? This is not, sort of a very closed off pipe and draping, secret testing. This is everybody working to figure it out together. And we're
Mhm.
starting to see more participation from deployers. So USDOT is sending a delegation, Caltrans is sending a rather large delegation. We have folks coming even from all the way from Texas on the government side. So I think it's an opportunity for all of us to learn and work together because it is a collaborative effort. I know USDOT has a VitaX deployers cohort, which is, I think, representing 48 of the 50 states. And I'm sure that the same thing is happening in Europe. But Plugfest is a special place where the deployers and the vendors and test equipment providers and the labs all really come together to figure this out. Because at the end of the day, we all want trusted devices
Yeah,
out there because more trusted devices means more ubiquitous deployment. People have confidence to deploy the technology, and sometimes it doesn't quite always work right out of the box. You have to do a little testing to figure it out. So there is a certain value in the work that we do for I think for the greater good.
absolutely. Yeah, and engineers, all engineers attending Plugfest are there for this one common cause, which is to make their devices work, to understand how they work, understand how they don't work, fix that problem, and move things forward.
Well, fantastic. Russell, I hope you'd be willing to take questions from members if we're getting close to the end of the hour. But if anyone has any questions, please put
Sure,
those in the Q&A box or raise your hand. Um, but I hope you'd be willing to take questions afterwards from folks because you're
of
just a
course.
wealth of knowledge and experience. And I think everyone wants to have just a great experience at Plugfest.